Alexa, thank you so much for coming on Collegehood Advice. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
So today's topic is how to get more than coffee at your internship. You wrote a book called Get More Than Coffee, the ultimate internship guide and planner. And so I thought we'd start by unpacking what exactly an internship is. In my experience as an advisor, I've seen students who are crystal clear on what an internship is, and I've seen some myths and misconceptions when it comes to internship. So Alexa, what is an internship?
A temporary position that you have at a company, and it's a time to learn and really try to understand what your interests are and getting information from your fellow colleagues. But the key thing is that it's a temporary position. And I really like to focus on that because some people have really great internship experiences and some have not so great ones. So focusing on the fact that it's temporary, where they really get to focus in on a specific industry, a specific skill set, and it's really all about learning and leveraging the relationships you make there to advance your career to the next step.
So it's very different than, say, a part-time job where you've committed to work there indefinitely.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And it's not that a part-time job can't necessarily provide you with a lot of the things you learn in an internship, but a part-time job, there are different expectations from you and for you. So your employers, if you're in a part-time job, may expect you to be able to dive right in. You're not there to learn, you're there to provide them value immediately. Whereas with an internship, yes, your employers are hoping and expecting for you to provide them with value, but they also expect that you're learning and that you'll need that extra guidance along the way.
Yeah, there's a little bit different bar, different purpose from the role that you're playing in that type of employment.
Sure.
Yeah. So I've heard that the more you intern, the better. In my own experience as an advisor on a campus, talking to career service advisors and counselors. So why should you intern and when should you intern?
So I'm going to actually start with when should you intern? And there is no time that's too soon to do that. I'm actually working with a high school right now. They're creating an internship program for high schoolers. And they're going to be utilizing my book to help guide them through. So before they even reach college, they're going to have internship experience under their belts. So there really isn't a time that's too early. There can be a time that's too late, though. You shouldn't necessarily wait until your senior year to look for an internship, because by that time, it's not that it's wrong to do that. It's just starting earlier gives you the opportunity to explore different options as well. So that's my take on when to intern. As far as how many and how often, that really depends. So the beauty of doing multiple internships is, again, you kind of figure out what you like, what you don't like. So I did 5 internships, and that is through a span of my undergraduate career, but also while I was getting my master's. And my very first internship, I thought I knew what communications was. And I went into my internship and I'm like, oh, this is not what I thought it was going to be. Maybe that's not quite what I want to study. And I did that during my sophomore year. So if you think that you're studying something that you want to do, and then you do an internship in it and you're like, oh no, this isn't what I want to be doing, you may need to change your major or may continue with it, but want to get experience in something else. So since it's a temporary position, you're able to get like a really good understanding of the basics of that industry or that particular kind of position that you're in. So there's no magic number as to how many internships you should do. And it's all about making the most of them as well when you're there. Just because you realize, ooh, I don't like doing this, doesn't mean you're not going to learn something from it. So during your time there, get the most out of it. Take notes, because there are all kinds of things you can learn from an internship. It can be analyzing your manager's leadership style. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that's very specific to your industry.
Sure. And I think that's good advice to extend in any situation, especially when you're within the college experience. Your goal is to personally and professionally develop. And sometimes you're going to get a lot out of a course or a lot out of an experience, and it's going to be great and positive. And sometimes you're not going to think it's as great or as valuable, but there are golden nuggets everywhere. You can
Yes.
always take away a golden nugget from an experience, even if it's a non-example, something you don't want, something you don't want to act like. Those non-examples are actually important because they provide contrast and help you clarify things that don't work for you.
Absolutely. There was one internship I had that I was counting down the days to leave, but I learned so much about how important a company culture and company values are to me. And as long as they match my personal values, then that helps you realize what kind of company would be a good match for you. So
Which is
that's another key thing.
Yeah, that's so important too, to understand where you fit, what kind of companies you fit in, because I think sometimes we have our eye on a particular job and maybe we're going to love that job, but it's going to depend on where we're doing that job. I've been in an academic advisor in environments that I absolutely despised and were counting down the hours and dreaded going to work. And I've been an academic counselor in environments where I was thriving and I loved it and I was part of a community and it was so much fun and I helped students. I was doing pretty much the same job. There were different managers, different support structures, different environments that had me thrive versus feel dread. And so the only way to kind of get a sense of that is to experience it, really.
Exactly, exactly. And that's why I love internships, because it gives you like a snippet of what it would be like in a marketing agency versus doing marketing for one particular company.
Yeah, it's a great way to see all the different ways that a particular role may actually be depending on the structure that it's housed within, which is amazing. I love that. Well,
Yeah.
that being said, do you have any pointers about how to actually find an internship? If I'm starting from scratch and I'm like, oh, well, how do I even get one? My parents don't work for a company where I can intern. I don't really know anybody who can connect me with an internship. Where would you start?
There's so many different places, and I think the most obvious is to go online. But where online? I mean, are you just going to type in internships in Orlando? I mean, where do you start? I like Way Up a lot, and Way Up actually started the, I think it's called Intern Day or Internship Day, and that is where they post the top 100 companies that have their top internship programs. They also post some internship positions there as well. So that's one location. And that's if you're going to start doing like cold research. Now, there's so many ways to get internships, but another way is to leverage your relationships with your professors. So that's how I got one of my internships. I was speaking to a professor. He saw what I was interested in, and he said, would you be interested in talking to an executive in this particular field? I'm friends with her. Maybe you can use her for part of the research in your paper. So I went to interview her as research for my paper. And toward the end of the interview, she said, we have internship positions available. Would you be interested? So that all started through knowing someone, but it doesn't necessarily have to mean you have to have an in the company immediately. It can be leveraging those relationships that you already have with your professors, because that's an easy way to do it if you're already a student. And absolutely use career services. That's one mistake that I definitely made when I was in college, is I did not utilize career services, and they know what they're doing.
They do.
They do. They have these connections already. They know where to send you and they have the advice. So they want to help. They do. And that's one thing that I wish I did when I was a student, is talk to them as well. So there are definitely multiple ways you can go about it. There were some that I called a company and I'm like, hey, do you have any internships open this summer? And they're like, oh, as a matter of fact, we do. Let's set up an interview. I'm like, okay. So some are as easy as that. Some are, you're just put in a pool of hundreds of applicants and you may not even hear back from them. So, so many different ways.
That's you really, I think some points and themes that I want to pull out there is one I'm hearing, it's really about building relationships, and not to say to exploit those relationships, but if you naturally use your relationships and you show up and you're engaged and you talk with people and you share what you're working on and you ask for advice and guidance and you include people in your experience, or I like to say you enroll them in your vision, then they will start to suggest opportunities to you or help you open doors. And asking the question of your professors, do you know of any internships that I should check out that might be a good match for me? Or do you have anyone else I can talk to about this? Those simple questions, which you will use in professional life, right,
Oh, yes.
go such a long way in helping you to begin to open doors. That's what we mean by networking. We don't, I mean, you can go to a mixer and meet people cold. That's another form of networking. I think that's the form that comes to mind when you say
It
that
is.
word. And people go, ooh, I don't want to network.
Yep.
But really, networking is about talking to the people in your environment about what you're working on, not just your family and friends, but your professors, your academic support staff, resources on your campus like career services. I think you're not alone, Alexa. I think most students underutilize those services. In my own 15 years experience working in those services, you know, sometimes it was hard to get students to come and actually maximize what we were offering to them. And I think that's because students feel uncomfortable, like they're bothering someone. They feel stupid. They don't know what to say. They don't feel like they have the time. They feel intimidated. There's a lot of things behind that. But the thing is this is an opportunity for you to practice skills of reaching out and advocating for yourself that are essential when it comes to making your way in the workforce.
Yeah, agreed.
So I want to dive a little bit more into your book, Get More Than Coffee, and talk about some of your pro tips and best practices for getting the most value from your internship.
Sure. So the way the book is broken up is two sections. The first section includes some of the tips and tricks, which I'll go over in a second. And then the second half is a calendar portion. And within the calendar portion, it has sections for you to put like a focus of the week and lessons learned that week. And it's really a space where you can write down the meetings you have, your tasks, because there's something about still in such a digital world, something about writing down what you're doing, your tasks. People still use Post-its all the time. So one spot to keep all your notes for it. And it's really about documenting what you accomplish and learn there. Because what happens is 2 years down the road, you're ready to write your resume or adjust your resume for a particular role, and you're like, oh, what did I do in that internship 2 years ago again? I know I worked on this big project, and you can't remember details, right? You can't quantify things as easily. You may not remember all the relationships you built there. So there's even a section for you to write who you meet and who you talk to. So it's really about documenting. Now, as far as what to do to get the most out of your internship, it's a lot about self-reflection of what your work style is. So like taking those kinds of personality tests, those are actually very helpful so you have awareness of yourself. Creating a vision board. What is your dream job? What does it look like before you even enter your internship? And then reevaluating that after your internship and seeing how it shifted or if it strengthened. Um, looking at your strengths and weaknesses. And I know that's a very common topic, and it's a very common interview question as well. So this actually will help you in future interviews too. But looking at your strengths and weaknesses when you start the internship, and then seeing how certain strengths grow at the end of your internship. And if you want to reevaluate your weaknesses and turn those into strengths, or just recognize that that is a weakness and that is okay. I'm going to focus on these other strengths. So a lot of self-reflection, documentation, and then being able to walk away with something that you can utilize in the future to market yourself.
That's such good advice. I'm going to extend that advice to keep up with all of your addresses and the names of employers and their phone numbers and addresses, because one day when you're applying for work and someone wants a background check, you will have to enter in some of that information. And it's so helpful if you have it in a centralized place.
It is. And actually, that's one thing that I have in the very beginning of the book is a place to write down the company address, your start and end date, a job description, your supervisor name, job title, and your starting and ending salary. Because let me tell you, every application that I've had to do needs this information. And when I try to think back to my very first of the 5 internships and had to input that, you know how I would try to remember? I'd have to go back to like old Facebook posts of when I posted first internship, or I'd have to start Googling what was the minimum wage in Florida on this date in this year. So it's just one place to just write it all down, and then you keep that in the future so you're not scrambling, and it makes the application process so much easier.
Which means you can apply to more places.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Because it's not quite as time consuming. That's a great pro tip. So documenting your experience, like these logistical details, but also observing how you grow and what you're actually doing, what skills you're refining and honing. So it's both these sort of practical data points, but also seeing your own growth through the experience. I love that so much, because I think sometimes we passively experience our own personal development so much that we don't
Mhm.
realize how far we've come. And so I think it's not until you look back at pictures from 10 years ago and you think, oh yeah, that you realize how you have shifted and changed. And so documenting it, I think, can be a really great, one, for expressing it on a resume, but two, for your own personal gratification. I think it's really positive way to celebrate your own growth and achievements as well.
It is. And an internship is such a good way to learn and grow. So you definitely want to know what you walk away with during the 6 weeks to 1 year internship experience you have.
Yeah. So how do you get more than coffee during an internship?
So I do acknowledge that sometimes, unfortunately, you might end up being the one to get coffee. It's very uncommon now, but it does happen. I've seen an intern have to get her boss. It wasn't coffee; it was tea, but still along the same lines. Um, it's a matter of, and I guess coffee can also be not literal, right? It can be the very basic work that you think is minimal work, you know, that, oh, they're just giving that to the intern to do. Those tasks are well, for one, someone has to do them. So by helping someone work on those tasks, you're helping the team. But my advice is get those tasks and do your absolute best at them. Because if someone can trust you with the most basic of tasks, then they'll start to gain that trust and want to give you more advanced tasks and get you on other projects. So, really doing well at those basic tasks, you start to prove yourself. because no one's going to want to give you a part of their job that they're going to be on the line for and they don't trust you with it. You need to start building that trust. And one way of doing that is as simple as the task can be, just do it well, do it quickly. Don't take your time because, oh, well, this is the only thing I have to do on my plate right now. So I know it can only take me 4 hours, but I'm going to take 2 days to do it just to like waste the time. Don't do that. Do what you think you can in the time that you can do it. And then people will start to learn that you can start to handle things.
Yeah, so the idea is leveling up. Don't just, get the coffee, but do it well.
Yes.
File the files. That's what I did at an internship.
Yep.
Or enter the data, right?
Mhm.
But be accurate and precise, do it well, and then ask for more so that you're getting the opportunity to show that you're a quick learner, hard worker, but that also you're getting the opportunity to leverage and learn more skills and gain more experiences as you are leveling up the amount of work that you're capable of. Because from the employer's perspective, they may have had a student who like did the whole I'm going to stretch out this data entry thing for 2 days, and they maybe have lost trust in interns and think that that's how young people today are, which is something we hear a refrain I hear quite often. And so I think what I'm hearing you say is don't play into that stereotype. You have to kind of prove yourself a bit.
Yeah, exactly. And I like how you said ask for work. That's okay to go ask for work. And if you ask someone and they say, "Oh, I don't have anything for you right now," let them know, "Well, when you think of something, please let me know. I'd be happy to help you." And then ask someone else, see if someone else needs help.
Mhm.
And also, don't expect when you ask them for help that they're going to give you something immediately. They may need some time to think about what the right task is to give you. So you can even acknowledge that and say, "Oh, do you have anything I can work on later this week?" That might ease their thoughts on giving you a task. So it gives them the time to think about the right task for you as well.
Oh, I love that. That's great advice. Well, we're kind of starting to dive naturally into some of the mistakes that you see. Are there any other that we should draw out that you see students making when it comes to internships?
Yeah. I mean, one thing that is so easy is being on your phone. I know that sounds very stereotypical, but um, if you are on your phone working on something, they think that you have nothing better to do. So if you do need to go on the phone, because people need to, keep in contact, and that's fine. But my advice is instead of being on your phone at your desk or in your space, step out for a bit if you need to. That way, if people walk around and see you and you're on your phone, they're not assuming the worst. So if you step out, people expect, you took a break, and breaks are warranted and breaks are good to have. So take your little break and make the call that you need to. The other thing is utilizing instant message online for like non-work related conversations. I see happen a lot. So make sure that you're very professional in that sense. Um, but I just see so many interns that, especially when they don't like their internships, start to get a little lazy and unprofessional, and maybe they're late often. Maybe they just, like we already talked about, take their time with tasks, start talking about how bad the internship is while you're actually at work around your fellow colleagues. So, keeping that professionalism, even in an environment you are not fond of. And that actually happens more often than not. The other thing too is staying organized. So there are some internships, and I know we've talked a lot about, some of the negative experiences, but there's some really good internship programs. And sometimes you may be given a lot of tasks by multiple people and you don't know how to prioritize things. So one thing that I see is a mistake is when people are too scared to ask questions. So for the example of multiple priorities, go back to your supervisors or whoever assigned you those projects and say, I have these 3 projects on my plate. Everyone says that they have to be done ASAP. Well, what is the time frame that you actually need this done? Maybe as soon as possible for one of them means in 2 days. Maybe for another one it means in 2 hours, and maybe for the third one it means by the end of the week. So then you're able to help prioritize, but you wouldn't know that if you're not asking the questions. So make sure that you are asking questions like that. Don't be shy to ask questions, but also be wary of asking the same question multiple times. If you ask a question once, make sure you write down what you're learning and what the answer is, so you don't have to go back multiple times for the same question, because then it sounds like you're not necessarily paying attention. So it's not that no question is a stupid question. I mean, you should be asking the questions, but just make sure when you're really paying attention. If you need to take notes, take the notes.
Yeah, that's great. Great advice is to engage with it just like you would in a classroom. It's a professors have you do these things not just because they have them you do them for no reason. They have you do them to prepare you to use those skills, transfer those skills of asking questions, engaging, being curious, showing up as a professional in the classroom. All of those are going to extend to an internship and then work. An internship is ultimately an opportunity to get references and experience to put on your resume so that you're prepared when you go to apply for your professional employment. You aren't without things to list on your resume,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
And you want those to be not empty things that you're listing. You want to bring the actual skill sets to the table so that you're prepared and can thrive in your new work environment.
Yes, you want to be able to talk about what you accomplished in your internship, not just say you got an internship.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that that's really important is that the impulse is to sort of tick off the boxes. I went to this prestigious school, check. I got a 4.0, check. I majored in this thing, check. I got this internship, check. And that once you have all those boxes checked and you put them on a resume, that all of the like amazing jobs are going to come your way. But the reality is there has to be some substance underneath all of those things. Those are just indicators that you were able to achieve an outcome, but there has to be substance. You have to have the skills, the knowledge, the relationships, the experiences underneath all of those things to actually be competitive for jobs.
100%. I mean, you're competing against so many other people, and you have to be able to stand out. So you want to be the best intern. I mean, that should be one of your goals, is to walk away and make sure that the people you worked with say, wow, you were a great intern. We would love to have more interns like you. Even if they don't have a position available for you at the end, that's okay. A lot of that has to do with budget and not necessarily based on your performance. It's making sure that they have the right head count that's allowed in that company, in that department. So a lot of it may be over your head, but making sure that still you walk away with them feeling confident in the value you provided to them.
Where can my listeners connect with you and find your book?
So there are a couple different ways. You can find my book on Amazon. It's Get More Than Coffee, the Ultimate Internship Guide and Planner. I also have a website, www.getmorethancoffee.com. You can go on my Instagram, and it's at Get More Than Coffee. And I also have an email address, so you can feel free to email me at getmorethancoffee@gmail.com.
Alexa, before we sign off, is there anything we missed or any last wisdom you'd like to share with my listeners?
Just make sure that you're positive and really try to make it a true learning experience. And don't take any bad experiences as a waste of your time. It's not. Through these experiences, you are learning what works for you, what doesn't. And those are all helpful in your career growth.
Alexa, thank you so very much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.